What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the series. So today we're gonna take a little bit of a break from our usual trick tutorials and concept tutorials, and I want to take the time to talk about counterweights, or more specifically the counterweights that are my choice for whenever I want to kind of just either be serious in competition, or even if I'm just kind of messing around trying to develop new concepts. So I'm just gonna go over what makes a good counterweight for myself, my personal favorite counterweights, and just talk about some of the different counterweight options that are out on the market today that I really like, and also give some of my thoughts about some counterweights that maybe I'm not the biggest fan of. So over on this table I have just a big assortment of different counterweights. Some of these are my favorites, some of these are like gifts and novelty ones I've gotten over the years, and really there's just quite a variety. And for the most part, most of these counterweights that I actually have are options that you can either still find on the market today or are just really easy to come by. I think that's one of the great things about 5A play, is that there's just such a variety of different counterweights that people can use. And like I've mentioned in my earlier videos too, since the beginning of 5A, people have been using all sorts of things for counterweights. People are using like little action figures, rubber ducks, drilled casino dice, and just all sorts of other things, all different weights, all different sizes. And kind of what we have today is, just still a vast majority, but now they're things that are actually manufactured for 5A play, which is really cool. So first I want to talk about the counterweight that I actually used for most of my 5A career, if you want to call it that. I picked up 5A in the summer of 2004, and the very first counterweight I ever used was simply a Duncan Dice. Now Duncan started manufacturing these years ago, and I don't believe they manufacture just your standard dice anymore, but really this is the counterweight that really is just like, you look at this and you just think 5A, and it's just so iconic, and really is just kind of the industry standard, and it has been for many years. Even most counterweights that come out on the market today are loosely inspired by the original Duncan counterweight, with its size, with its weight. Pretty much everything kind of follows this model. So this is really the counterweight that started a lot of 5A players' careers, and is just very iconic for a lot of reasons. So really the weight is perfect, the size is perfect, the colors are visually appealing and easy to see, and it's just a very simple design. It's a dice, has a hole drilled through it. Some people would choose to string their strings through it and tie a knot at the end, while other people, like myself, would actually put the slip knot through, and you would just basically have it kind of tethered around the slip knot. Ultimately, this is, I feel, the perfect counterweight to get started with 5A. There's really no gimmicks to it. There's no fancy setup. You don't even have to worry about having like an extra bead. It's just a piece of plastic with a hole drilled through it, and it's perfect. The weight's good, and I highly recommend picking one of these up. They're really easy to find, and really they just feel nice. Like, you get a nice feeling when you're using these. And I used these all the way up until probably about 2018, I want to say. So even during my National Yo-Yo Contest win in 2017, I was just using a standard Duncan Dice. The next counterweight I want to talk about is the Porycon V. Now, Porycon is definitely one of the biggest leaders when it comes to counterweight innovation, and a lot of very famous 5A players have been using Porycon products for a while. Porycon V is a pretty simple design, it's not really a sphere, it's not really a barrel, it's kind of in between, and it really just has a nice feel to it. I really like the feel of Delrin when it comes to counterweights. It just has like this kind of soft matte feel to it, and it just feels like really premium. The Porycon V uses a bead setup, so basically you would string your string through the bead first, then that goes through the counterweight, and really it's a pretty easy setup. Doesn't have like a lot of different parts, you're just dealing with the bead and that's basically it, and it just has a really nice feel to it, and they're really durable too. I think when I first kind of figured out that there were Delrin counterweights, I was a little bit skeptical, just because I was worried, okay, is this gonna break? I don't really know the structural integrity of having a small piece of Delrin, but really it ended up being pretty strong. I've dinged these like crazy all the time and they still work fine. So that's why I have a whole bunch of these mint in package. I had the expectation that I might accidentally break a couple, so I bought just a ton, and I've really only been using 2, and I have all these extra that are just kind of waiting for their use. So very durable, really like these. They have a nice feel to them, and yeah, just even the way they fly through the air, it's really smooth and just has a really good action to it. So definitely recommend. The next counterweight I want to talk about is a very special counterweight, and that is the Chainmail counterweight created by Dustin Gunter. Dustin is an amazing 5A player as well, and he developed this idea of doing chainmail counterweights. Now, the interesting thing about these is, while you would think that, okay, chainmail, that's going to damage my yo-yo, that's going to like be heavy, it's going to, you know, ding, and it's going to hurt when it hits your hands. So these actually don't hurt at all, and they don't even damage your yo-yo. And the reason for that is because of the construction. So the chainmail actually has a lot of give to it, and there's also these rubber rings that are intertwined within the chainmail, so that gives it a very bouncy feel. And I can, you know, ding these off my yo-yos. It doesn't even leave a scratch. You can bounce it off anything, and really it's just it's amazingly soft, and you wouldn't think that would be the case for a metal object, which, you know, that's insane. But really, these are really soft. It's impossible to hurt your hands. I know Dustin always says, you know, he encourages people to take this and just like bounce it off their head, and it doesn't do anything. There's no pain, and they're really just really cool. The cool thing about these two is that he actually makes these custom. So if there are certain colors of these that you want, he can actually make what colors you want intertwined into these, and it's just like, they're crazy. They're absolutely amazing. And you know, these are the ones that I like to use when I'm just kind of chilling out. You know, I'm not trying to like practice too seriously. And it's nice because, like, you know, if you have roommates or a spouse, you know, who don't like the ding of a counterweight against the yo-yo, these don't really make much of a sound. Like, they're soft, and you're not going to get that loud ear-piercing ring that you get when you hit another counterweight against your yo-yo. All right, another counterweight that I want to bring up is actually not necessarily just one counterweight, but it's a variety of counterweights from my good friend Juan Renteria, and he has a counterweight company called Chunkies, and I'll leave the links to the description down below. And basically, he manufactures these 3D printed counterweights, and they're really cool. He has a variety of different designs that he's created, and really all of them just have sort of a unique feel to them. They're all roughly around the same weight, and for the most part they're around the same size, but each one kind of has like a certain shape. So like here I have the shroom, this little mushroom counterweight, which feels really good. I like that it has like the rounded side, but then it also has sort of this flat side as well. It makes a really interesting feel during play. He's also developed a string adjusting barrel design that actually allows you to change the length of your string without having to take the whole counterweight off and like tie a new knot and everything. You can actually wrap the string around this design and then fit it through the groove to just adjust on the fly, which is crazy. Sort of like with the construction of Delrin counterweights, initially I was a little skeptical of the idea of the durability of 3D printed counterweights. But, you know, just like with the Porycon Vs, I've dinged these to heck. You know, they're constantly just clashing with my yo-yos all the time. And yeah, they've never cracked, they've never broken, I've never had any issues with them. And really, they just feel really nice. Like, I really like the way that they feel in the hand, and just even the textures of some of these, you know, with all the ridges and the grooves, like, it just kind of, like, it feels nice. The last set of counterweights that I want to talk about is actually a very simple counterweight. Now, these are not necessarily manufactured, but players have been doing this for years, and what they are is they're a set of double dice that are just drilled standard Chessex small standard game size dice. And really, these are cool because It was found quite early on in the history of 5A that 2 of these miniature-sized dice were perfect and basically had the same weight as a full-size Duncan dice. So what that means is that you would get this really nice set and perfectly weighted set of dice, but they're set up for double dice or Astro. Another great thing about having this kind of setup is that if you go to any of your standard gaming stores, for tabletop gaming or even hobby stores, is they actually sell this size of Chessex dice in a lot of different colors. And you can go for like clear ones, you can go for like marble ones. You can just buy these basically in bulk, and then you just get a drill through them, and you get a perfect and unique set of dice for customizing to color coordinate with your yo-yos, or just have like really bright colors that really stand out. So now that I've talked about counterweights that I do like, I do want to touch on some counterweights that I'm personally not a big fan of, and I wanted to explain why. So personally, I really am not a fan of counterweights that involve a bearing that is inside the actual counterweight. Companies will often push these counterweights and claim that they have the ability to sort of naturally release the string tension that occurs when you're doing 5A tricks, and that the bearing basically eliminates that, that tension that develops in the string by just letting it kind of slide out as you're doing your 5A play. I find this kind of gimmick personally really misleading, especially to newer 5A players. With 5A, because the string is always not attached to your finger, the natural motion of a counterweight spinning and doing all of its maneuvers actually allows the string to get rid of any sort of tension that may occur naturally. Just as it's a free-flying object that is not attached to your hand, it is free to rotate and unrotate as you're doing your tricks. If you were to take some footage of a counterweight spinning, and we were able to slow it down a lot, like really a lot, you would actually see that the counterweight does rotate to kind of keep its tension at a good amount, what would be considered like a natural tension. And this will occur whether or not your counterweight has a bearing in it, or if it doesn't have a bearing in it, if it's just a bead, or even if it's a fixed counterweight like a binded Duncan Dice. A lot of the counterweights that have bearings in them end up being a lot more expensive than counterweights without, and for that reason I feel it's just very misleading. I don't really like that companies feel that they can push that as like a really amazing solution to string tension, when really string tension is just not something you deal with much in 5A play in the first place. That said, there are some reasons why some top players would use that particular bearing counterweight. When you have a bearing and a counterweight, you tend to get a lot of its mass centered on the inside at the string connection point. And this can kind of change the way the counterweight feels during play as opposed to one without. Just because the weight distribution's kind of changed, it does have a slightly different feel. Whether or not this feel would be advantageous to a player leaves a lot to be discovered, but for some players, who just have their comfort at the highest level, especially when you get into competition yo-yoing, and yeah, it can make sense that a yo-yo counterweight with a bearing in it might just be the counterweight that they feel they can use and the one that they really vibe well with. I can say though that they're not using that counterweight for the reasons of string tension though. Really they're just using counterweight because it has a feel that they like, and there's really nothing more to it. I'd highly recommend still trying out some of the bearing counterweights, because you might find that some of them have like a feel and a weight that you would really like. Just don't go into it expecting that it's going to be this amazing thing that's just going to automatically adjust your string tension, because I'm sure you're going to find the same results using a counterweight that doesn't have a bearing at all. Thank you guys once again so much for watching this video. I really hope that I was able to offer some advice for counterweights and just kind of open your eyes about some of the counterweights that are available and out there today, and hopefully guide you in the right direction if you're searching for your first counterweight, or even a counterweight that kind of is meant to progress you from the very starting point. Thank you guys for all your support. Until next time, I'll catch you later.